Hey guys, so I released a video yesterday on racket customization where I basically said that a lot of recreational players are playing with rackets that are already too heavy, and on top of that they put lead tape all over it. And I've had people send me emails and they said that they play with rackets that are 400 grams, absolutely insane things, and they happen to be like 4.0 level or 4.5 level. And look, I've always said in all my recommendation videos when we're talking about strings or rackets, if it works for you, then by all means continue using whatever setup you have. I have absolutely no problem with it. But what happens in my profession is that people will come to me with pain, with tennis elbow problems, with shoulder problems, and they ask me for advice. But it's not only that, they also are not playing to their best capabilities, and they ask me for advice on which rackets they should play with. So the vast majority of recreational players can actually benefit from playing with a lighter racket, and yes, a stiffer racket. That's why today's video is titled Stiff versus Flexible Rackets. I released a post on Instagram that was just a snippet of the YouTube video that came out yesterday, where I talked about that a lot of recreational players use rackets that are too heavy and too flexible, and a lot of people were fighting in the comment section over this topic. But I can tell you that I draw on my own personal experience. Having worked in the tennis industry for 30 years, ran a club with my dad that had over 700 members, and we recommended that people play with polyester string, a monofilament polyester with a thin gauge, 17 gauge, strung very loosely. And also we recommended that the racket weight should not be too heavy. And guess what happened? Many players who had tennis elbow were healed from the tennis elbow. I can give you one player that you know, which is Anna. Anna developed tennis elbow. She played with the Wilson Ultra, and she got her racket strung, and it was strung way too tight, and all of a sudden she got tennis elbow. So what I did was I changed her string. I put it in the Kirschbaum Super Smash, a thin gauge. I strung it very loose, and also I got her a Babolat Pure Drive Team. And a lot of people are wondering, Nick, why would you do something like that? It is widely known that Babolat Pure Drive causes tennis elbow. Just Google it. This is the things that I get in my email, I get it in my DMs, I get it in my WhatsApp. I get this stuff all the time. But here are the facts. Anna has been pain-free since. She has not had any tennis elbow. If you watch her recent video, she doesn't even wear her arm sleeve anymore. She's completely pain-free. And how could this be? But here's the reason why. Now, I already explained this in my first racket video that I released a long time ago, but I'm going to tell it to you again. Think about the senior tennis players and which rackets they play with. These are huge rackets that are usually very stiff and very light as well. And this is a very easy racket for someone of an older age to play with. Why would that be the case? Because what happens with stiff rackets and light rackets is that when you hit the ball, it takes less effort to get the ball back over the net. If you get a heavy racket that's also very flexible, that's going to require more effort. When you make more effort with your arm, there's more of a danger to hurt yourself. Now look, I understand that most people will think of stiff rackets as bad for the arm and soft, flexible rackets as good for the arm. One person compared it to getting a shoe with a stiff sole, and of course going to hurt your foot more than a soft sole. But it doesn't work like that when we play tennis, because we are hitting a tennis ball. This is the big game changer. We do have to hit that ball and get it over to the other side. Now look, all you guys that are good players, you might be okay with a flexible racket, no doubt about it. I got no problem with it. But the vast majority of my audience are players who are older, 40 years and above, and they also happen to be anywhere between the ratings of 2.0 and 4.5. And look, I also have some advanced recreational players who watch my videos, and also some high-level players. And you guys have to understand that unless you're a tennis coach and you're trying to give people recommendations, that if you're just a player and you like the equipment that you're playing with, this doesn't mean that somebody else is going to like what you like. So of course, when we talk about the high level, there's going to be more players that play with flexible frames, because that translates into more control and more power. When you get a very stiff frame, especially when it's light, this is not often seen at the high level, because it translates into less control. And this is why the vast majority of male high level players play with heavier rackets, which are also more flexible. Now this brings me to the next point, which is what do women play with? Well, a lot of women will play with this racket, the Babolat Pure Drive. And I received a very interesting email. This is the type of stuff that people sent to me. So this guy said that the Babolat Pure Drive is a woman's racket, but it is also the racket that's responsible for the most tennis elbow for all players. So think about the logic there. The Pure Drive is a woman's racket, which I agree with. I play with a woman's racket. I used to play with a woman's racket, the Wilson Hyperhammer 5.2. If you want to know why, take a look at my arm. I got a little bit of a girl's arm. I'm not that strong of a guy naturally, so I need a little bit of help from the racket. So think about the logic. It is true that a lot of women play with the Pure Drive. A lot of juniors play with the Pure Drive as well. But at the same time, it is also supposed to be the racket that's going to destroy your arm. Think about the logic there. So the reason why a lot of juniors, a lot of women play with the Pure Drive, because it is a lighter racket. I know it comes in different weights, but generally most women play with the 300-gram model, and it is also a very stiff racket. That translates into a lot of power, and more importantly, it translates into less energy exerted. This is why I like this racket. If I get a racket that's more flexible, I'm going to have to do more exertion with my arm, and it's going to translate into pain. So you cannot say that this racket is bad for the arm if at the same time women who obviously don't have as strong of an arm as a man play with this racket and they're perfectly fine. This makes absolutely no sense, and it goes back to my original point, which is that light and stiff rackets will give you an easier time when you generate power. Flexible and heavy rackets will be more difficult when it comes to creating power, and therefore you're going to exert less energy with a stiffer light racket, and you're going to exert more energy with a heavier racket. And this is a big difference when it comes to tennis elbow. Again, if you are playing with a certain racket and you are liking it and you have absolutely no pain, by all means continue playing with your racket. Muscle memory is something that's really crazy. I do have some students who play with extremely heavy rackets. These tends to be students who play with also older rackets that are discontinued, and they do just fine. Their body got used to the racket. But I'm talking about all the people that come to me for advice that either have trouble with their technique or have pain. And I'm telling you again, what you have to do is stay within your recommendations that I provided in my racket recommendation video. I'll repeat them again. If you're a beginner, stay under 270 grams unstrung. If you're an intermediate recreational player, between 270 and 300 is okay. If you are an advanced recreational player, you can go above 300. These are the general guidelines. When it comes to the stiffness of the racket, I recommend that you don't go with a racket that's super flexible and you try something that's a little bit on the stiffer side. More importantly, if you're using polyester string, I recommend monofilament polyester. You got to string it loosely. This is maybe even more of a reason why people get tennis elbow. It is the strings. I do discuss that in my string recommendation video. You can take a look if you want.